I thought it was best to show the overall study area again. These are the 6 areas that we're looking at. As Steve mentioned, this area is shaded. It's from 2009 study. We had the Greenwood Avenue study area, the Ravine study area, Spruce, Cherry, what we call the underpass, and then Provident Avenue study area. So just summarizing the ones we looked at, the underpass area was the one, here's the railroad tracks running along here. There's an underpass right here, as well as at Winnetka that comes underneath here. Our recommendation was to upsize the storm sewer, the shown in yellow, that leads to Lake Michigan, the outlet. It reduces the flooding at Winnetka Avenue, the underpass, which is currently 2.8 feet for a 10-year storm, down to 0 feet. It provides little benefit for the pedestrian underpass, but obviously significant benefit for the Winnetka Avenue underpass. There's also additional benefits shown in the shaded areas here where street flooding would be reduced. The total project cost for this was $2.4 million. And we went over this in detail last time. The Cherry outlet is to the north of that. What we had recommended here was some new storm sewer on Sheridan Road outletting to the lake, which would have a water quality and an energy dissipator. Would be an additional outlet. The reduction on Sheridan Road at Cherry Street would be for the 10-year storm from 0.4 feet of flooding depth to 0 feet. And this would solve several known flooding problems. The cost is about $700,000. So that's the Cherry outlet. So there's 2 of the areas. The third area, Spruce Street, a little further north at Lloyd Park. Talked about putting in a new outlet right here at Lloyd Park, where we'd also, again, do water quality to try and improve the water quality before it goes into Lake Michigan, put in an energy dissipator again. And this was the one where we had problem area here at Tower and Tower Road and Foxdale. Thank you. Just north of Foxdale. Just north of Tower, north of Foxdale, where Tower intersect. There was little benefit unless we had to extend a storm sewer up, which would be very expensive. We have looked at some other ideas, but the one we focused on here was reducing the flooding on Sheridan Road about a foot deep to, with this project, it would be reduced to about 0 feet. This total cost is about $370,000. The next one, even continuing up Sheridan Road, is the ravine. There is significant flooding that occurs at the low spot in the ravines. You have about 200 acres coming from Glencoe that flow down to this point, about 100 acres from the south in Winnetka, that converge and try and make its way out to Lake Michigan. Some of it goes in underground that you don't see in storm sewer, but a lot of it flows down the roadway to this low point here, coming from Glencoe as well as from Winnetka. It flows out here, and really it overflows the road about, for a 10-year storm, about a foot deep, which is not passable at that low spot. So what we've talked about doing is putting in some grates to try and convey that water under Sheridan Road into Lake Michigan so that it doesn't all overtop and make the road impassable. That reduces it from about one foot per 10-year storm down to 0 feet. That cost is roughly $150,000. And then where we left off last time was Greenwood Avenue. So here, again, the water is all trying to make its way to the pond at the southwest corner of the study area. The study area being in black. Everything in black is tributary to the pond, either right by the diversion ditch, or if it can't go into this pond here by gravity, it gets pumped into the diversion ditch. So we made a recommendation for pump station modifications that Steve had mentioned, as well as putting some 2 laterals shown in yellow here, extending north from Tower Road on either side, east and west of Greenwood. Those laterals would be on private property. They reduce the flooding there that's currently about 1.2 feet deep for a 10-year storm to about 0.7 feet deep. Why not 0? Well, 0.7 feet gets us below the low entry elevation of the houses there that all reported flooding and that have had historic flooding. So while it doesn't eliminate the flooding, it makes sure it gets below the point where it enters the houses. That's for a 10-year storm. That cost is about $70,000 for that recommendation. The next area I want to talk about was the Providence study area. Shown in yellow are the different flooding areas that we identified. Locust and Westmore, Locust and Star Road, and continuing further south, Providence and Oak, and then on both sides of Ash, at Providence and Ash, and then finally at Providence, all the way ties down to Willow Road and continuing to the west. So those yellow areas are we identified as problem areas, both from the questionnaires as well as working with the village. There were 12 cases of overland flooding reported. In general, the flow is from north to south. So all this area in black here is all trying to get down to Willow Road, the storm sewer on Willow Road, which then comes down to the forest preserve, goes diagonally across the forest preserve to the pump station when the water's high. So that water from the north is trying to get here. There's about it's 200 acres total. About 80 acres of it is in this north section here. It's trying to get to the south. Once it gets there, continue south to Willow Road, and then west towards the forest preserve. What we're really trying to concentrate here is, because it's a large 200-acre area, and we're very limited on what we can do on Willow Road as far as capacity and how much more we can send to the forest preserve by actually providing a benefit. What we're going to focus on is this north area and trying to remove this area from coming south. And that ties in with the 2009 study. So this next slide I'm going to show concentrates on this area here and the area to the west. So here's the study areas, the two northern study areas, and what we call the Provident area. And what our recommendation is take a storm sewer, instead of allowing the water by storm sewer to continue to the south, is take it to the west. New sewer west along here, and then by Washburn School, utilize the underground storage by providing additional underground storage than what already exists, but another 2 acre-feet. And then tied in with the 2009 recommendation, which was a storm sewer along Hibbard Road, an additional one along Pine and Ash, and then storage with the Park District, working with the Winnetka Park District to either provide storage north of A.C. Nielsen or down around Duke's Child Field. That has to be combined with another outlet along Willow Road with a pump station basically right across from Public Works, not on Forest Preserve property, but across from Public Works on the north side of Willow Road that would pump it into the Skokie River just south of the dam. This, again, combined with the 2009 recommendation, because it does not work without doing that, reduces standing water from 1.8 feet to 0 feet in that those northern study areas that we have up here. 1.8 feet deep right now, down to 0 feet. The cost shown here, $6.8 million, includes $4 million of which was from 2009 study. So basically the areas in red, the pump station, the storage, depending on where it goes, was about $4 million. We've added about another $2.8 million for a total of $6.8 million to this project. Going through that, what are we doing? We're upsizing sewers on Pine and Spruce Street, a new sewer along Hibbard, storage at Duke Child's Field or the area north of A.C. Nielsen, new sewer along Willow Road, and which would go to the outlet on the Skokie River, and a pump station. So as I mentioned, that $4 of that $6.8 million was included in the 2009 study. Here's a summary of the different areas and the recommendations we had. Right now, the underpass floods, all these are at the 10-year elevation, 10-year design. We went through that before with the 10-year means, the 10% chance of any given year. So right now, 2.8 feet of flooding. Proposed improvement costs $2.4 million, reduces the flood depth to 0 feet. The Cherry Outlet, 0.4 feet of flooding, bring it down to 0 feet, costs about $700,000. Spruce Outlet, about a foot of flooding on Sheridan Road, to reduce it to 0 is about $370,000. The ravine to make Sheridan Road passable during the 10-year event, where you have about a foot of flooding right now, is about $150,000. Greenwood, where you have a maximum of about 1.2 feet, bring it down about half of that, is about $70,000. And then the last one was Provident, which is 1.8 feet of flooding in the northern area. Separate that from southern area, which is a benefit for that southern area, because now the storm sewer, which conveys flow for 200 acres, only has to deal with that southern area, and also helps Willow Road. It doesn't reduce any flooding on Willow Road, but it helps alleviate, takes off some of the drainage areas coming to there now. That project, again, tied with the 2009 recommendations, is $6.8 million. So the long-term drainage improvements that we identified here was about $10.5 million when you add all that together. Again, $4 million of that came from the study we did when we looked at this area in here on the east side of Hibbard, north of Willow. So $10.5 million from long-term drainage improvements. Total cost for the western study area here was $7.6 million. That area shown in red, that was $7.6 million from our recommendations, both those areas. And so total together, when you add those two together, about $14.1 million. So the next steps are obviously the decision-making process, what gets done, how do you decide what needs to be done, plus or minus 5-year drainage plan, if you so choose, prioritize, how do you prioritize which projects, which areas get done. So there's some of the outstanding questions. What funding sources are there? There's obviously cash reserves and pay-as-you-go capital. Bonding. We've worked with a lot of communities that have done bonding projects to pay for stormwater improvements. There's a stormwater utility fee option where all of the residents would be charged a utility fee since they all contribute stormwater, as well as not only residents but every parcel would be associated with a utility fee for. Really depends on the amount of impervious area they have. There's also special service areas. If you decide to concentrate on one area and only have the residents in that area pay for the improvement, you can do a special service area. And there's others. Now, unfortunately, there's as far as grants and stuff, there's very little money the state has. There is a HMPG grant, which is funding from federal declarations. Unfortunately, Cook County has never completed a application to have that done. So unlike some of the surrounding counties, Cook County communities are not eligible until Cook County finishes this application and gets approved. So that, although there's some money there, that is not available.